Let's move on to takeaways. For Substack, I think my takeaway there is that the best thing that like marketers can realize right now is how important niche communities are, because that's going to be the easiest and best way for you to tap into like audiences, right? These creators that write about very niche and narrow topics that have grown to like, some of upwards of like hundreds of thousands that like pay to read their work. And so that's like hundreds of thousands of like audience bubbles that like, potential sponsors can now tap into. And if Substack is going to make that easier for them, then this is kind of always going to happen.
Moving on into the 2026 trend reports and outlooks, let's, understanding, the why behind trends and consumer behavior, like even if it's not in your end industry, it's so important to understand the context of why these things are becoming appealing to others and, figuring out how to leverage, people's desire for curation and storytelling and figuring out how to connect with people on an emotional level is going to be, incredibly important, especially as we go forward into, the AI slop year.
Yeah. My takeaway for the chief storyteller bit, also encompassing, the Pinterest and Pantone thing, is that for marketers, it's more important than ever to be able to make these connections, yes, but then
Mhm.
also be able to talk about them or write about them so coherently that people understand what you're trying to say and what connections you're making. I think for a time, marketers kind of moved away from learning how to write. In an engaging way and getting people to care about what you're trying to say, that they've kind of, missed this boat a little. And so now it's like, here's another chance, right? It's like, here's your chance to like take everything that you're doing. Most of us are so online that the cultural like relevancies that are happening within your industry, within under other industries. How can you take all that and like bring it back to a way that like other people find relatable and accessible? Use that. That's like a superpower right now. um and then, that kind of, goes into the movie promos of the drama and Steven Spielberg's new film, where, my takeaway here for marketers is to like, take what's happening, what you're seeing go viral in like movies and like movie marketing and try to put the spin on it for your own marketing campaigns. They're just focusing on key things that are going to get attention. So what are those things that you can do, that you can take from? Is it like a billboard? Is it, doing something in the newspaper that's like interesting, that's like makes sense, but then also is a little different? Or is there some sort of experiential marketing thing that you could do? All these ideas are like out there, like feel free to take them and then, experiment with them, in your own way.
Yeah, and to build off of that, like, there's definitely a consumer desire for things that feel really intentional and feel really active as opposed to what, we see online. It's very, like, passive digital ads and posts and things like that. Like, people want something that they can interact with, something that, catches them off guard, that surprises them, that feels more active and, like I said, intentional, than, just the usual trailer or interview or, online campaign. There's something to be said about one impactful thing versus a lot of passive media.
Definitely.
For the Fortnite Kim Kardashian integration, I feel like that's also an example of very active, participation into new mediums and really taking control of, the narrative of your brand, your personal brand, and integrating it in a way that bridges generational gaps and makes you relevant, in a new audience, but still in a way that really hits for the audience that exists. Platforms like Fortnite, things that, the gaming industry or live streaming industry, the more important they become to culture and media overall, the more integrations we're going to see with brands and celebrities like this. It's the beginnings of what could be, a digital town square, if you will, of a place where people go to meet and connect, really use as a jumping off place for their in real life activity and purchasing, and behavior.
Yeah, I think what stands out to me is it's tech, it's gaming, it's fashion. And all these people now expect all these things to be where they are, right? It's no
Mhm,
longer that gaming is separate and then fashion is over here. It's no, like people like both. People like multiple things and multiple things are part of their identities. So don't think that just because you're in the fashion industry, you're too above, going to gamers, right? Like these
mhm,
are all parts of people's identity and you should be where they are. You should be looking for those things that are going to attract them and that are going to make sense for them, right? Like before I heard about this, I've been like, why would Kim Kardashian deign to work with like Fortnite? And it's like, well, she wants that younger consumer that cares about Skims and wants to buy her makeup and beauty, right? Like, of
mhm,
course she should be there, right? Like that's where the young people are. Um, so these are the things that like you need to think about of like how are you going to where they are and like what identities are
mhm.
you finding for your audience that have nothing necessarily to do with your brand but that still are find them where they are and like relate to them and still are trying to get in front of them. And I really think like Gen Z and Gen Alpha care about that more where it's like you come to me, you come
Yeah,
find me, do your research and care about what I care about and not
mhm.
just like you're expecting them to find you and come to you. Millennials, we need to do better. We need to expect more from brands, you know?
Yeah,
Um
totally. I totally agree. I also yeah, like what you said, like, about the multifaceted consumer, like, looking at your audience as
Mhm,
somebody who does more than just what, you are and what you do, like,
mhm,
people, there are gamers who still wanna wear, like, a cute comfy matching set. Like, just
mhm,
because they're gamers doesn't mean they don't care about, like, cool fashion or, things that are, more pop culture, more current.
mhm.
Yeah, and, like, looking at your consumer as, somebody that has a lot of interests besides, your brand and what it is that you offer.
Yeah, definitely.